In this module, we will be reviewing outcomes in relation to person-centered planning. We will be reviewing what outcomes are and what person-centered planning is, tools that can be used in person-centered planning, and how to develop outcomes. So what are outcomes? Outcomes are broad-based objectives of what the individual wants to achieve. Service providers will look at those outcomes to develop goals or strategies to assist the individual in achieving the outcome. Outcomes need to be individualized and person-centered based on the individual's preferences. They are linked to the desires, interests, hopes, and dreams that are written in the PCPT. They must also be the end result of what the individual wants to achieve, and so are written in future tense. An outcome should reflect what the individual wants to accomplish, improve, change, and/or maintain in their life. In a nutshell, outcomes are what the individual wants to achieve, what they want for their life. In order to determine what an individual's outcome will be, the support coordinator will need to go through the process of person-centered planning. Through this process, the support coordinator will get to know the person and find out what they want for their lives. Person-centered planning is ongoing and is used for decision-making when putting the plan together. A good person-centered plan will identify the support an individual needs as well as their health and safety needs. It should take into account the individual's preferences, strengths, and desires as well. The individual should be supported to be engaged in making decisions about their life now and in the future. The person-centered planning process is used to help people choose the supports and services that meet their needs and will help them to achieve their outcomes. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, as well as the New Jersey DDD, require that each individual has a robust and informed person-centered plan. Tools have been developed to assist in gathering information from individuals, families, and providers in order to create a person-centered plan. The DDD has created the PCPT for support coordinators to use, but there are many other tools that support coordinators can use to enhance the PCPT. The tools that are used are intended to drive conversations so that the support coordinator can capture information to identify needs, preferences, outcomes, and services. The tools are not merely a checklist to go through, but are used as a starting point to have conversations. Support coordinators should develop a toolkit of conversations that will help to build rapport and help them to learn more about the person's needs, preferences, and vision for life. We're going to take a look at some of the tools that support coordinators can use for person-centered planning in the next few slides. First, we have the PCPT, the Person-Centered Planning Tool. This is a mandatory tool in creating an individual's ISP, or Individualized Service Plan. This is an example of a completed PCPT for Becky that the Bog Center created. As you can see, the name of attendees who participated in the development of the PCPT are listed first. Then they discuss what the individual or others like about the individual. For Becky's example, they list things like her sense of humor, being kind-hearted, having enthusiasm for learning to cook, among other things. Then on page 2, they list who is important in Becky's life, whether it be friends, family, or supporters in different settings. The tool goes on to discuss what is important to the individual, such as routines, relationships, places to go, things to do, etc. Then they discuss what their hopes and dreams are for the future. What does the individual want their life to be like 5, 10, or 15 years from now, in terms of where they are living, what they are doing, including activities and employment, and what relationships they want to have. Next, it reviews what supporters need to do to support the individual within the home, work, or day program or community settings. The PCPT then discusses the characteristics of the people who support the individual best and what caregivers need to know about how the individual communicates. The Pathway to Employment section of the PCPT assists the support coordinator in discussing employment with the individual within 3 different scenarios. The first path is reviewed if the individual is already employed to determine if they are happy with their employment or if they want any changes, such as they want a job with higher pay, want different hours, or different job responsibilities. Path 2 is to be reviewed if the individual is unemployed but has paid or unpaid experience. It goes through some questions to help the support coordinator have a discussion with the individual in this situation, such as, do you know what kind of job you want? Have they gone to DVR or a one-stop career center, etc. Path 3 is to be used for individuals who are unemployed and have no experience. It asks questions such as, do you want to learn a new skill? Have you thought about something you are really good at and how that could be a job for you? The PCPT also includes the individual's desires regarding voting and any mental health concerns. Then the PCPT reviews the possible funding sources for any services that may be needed beyond the DDD budget, such as DVRS, personal funds, the PPP, SNAP, etc. Another tool that support coordinators can use is the Integrated Support Star. This tool helps the support coordinator discuss the support system that the individual has already and areas where they may need more support. The categories of support that are discussed with this tool includes the individual's personal strengths and assets, technology supports, supportive relationships, community-based supports, and eligibility-specific supports that the individual may use or need. This is the tip sheet explaining the integrated support star that we just looked at, giving an overview of it, as well as important reminders when using this form. So you can use this as a reference if you want to use the support star with an individual. Here is an example of what types of things would be included on the support star. For example, in the personal strengths category, you could include things like the individual's work experience, responsibilities they have at home, their knowledge of different careers, having good social skills, etc. In the pink section, you would list any technology supports that they have or need, such as alarm clocks, apps that they use on their phone, online classes, and so on. On the bottom left, the community resources are listed, such as volunteering opportunities, colleges or tech schools, tutors, and the like. On the bottom right, we have eligibility supports like work crews, job coaches, DVR, or DayHub. And finally, in the purple section, they list relationships that are supportive to the individual, such as parents, teachers, siblings, and mentors. Another tool that the support coordinator can use to develop a person-centered plan is the perfect week. Here you would list out what the individual would want to do in the morning, afternoon, and evening of each day of the week to determine what their idea of a good week would be. An example of the perfect week is shown here. So the support coordinator found that this individual would enjoy photography on Mondays, going out with Lizzie several times in the evenings, is interested in volunteering, looking for jobs, seeing her parents, among other things. The support coordinator could also use a tool called the Life Domain Vision tool. This tool helps foster a discussion of an individual's hopes and dreams within different domains in their life, such as daily life and employment, community living, social and spirituality, healthy living, safety and security, advocacy and engagement, supports for family, and supports and services. On the right-hand side, you will see that the individual would rank the domains by priority, so then the team would know what is of the highest priority to the individual. Here's an example of a completed tool so you can see what sort of things you would add to each section and how the domain would be prioritized. This particular version is the tool from the family perspective, so it has been adapted for the family to use. From using this tool with the family, you can see that the family has priorities for Sarah, which include her social and spiritual domain, where they state that they would want Sarah to find a group of friends who enjoy similar things. Secondly, they feel that healthy living is important for her, where they list that Sarah could get to know her medical history better and eat healthier and exercise. The third priority is supports for the family, particularly in terms of transportation and medical oversight. Just from completing a document like this, a supporter can see what an individual or family wants for their future within different areas of their life. The life trajectory is another tool to assist with person-centered planning. It discusses past experiences that have either supported the individual's vision for the future or pushed them towards something they don't want. Then it talks about moving forward, things that will continue to support their good life vision and things to avoid that could keep them from their good life vision. Then the individual would discuss what they want and don't want for their life. This is an example of a completed life trajectory from the family's perspective. This spells out for supporters what the family sees as the vision for the individual. You can see they want him to have friends, play sports, to be happy and healthy, and so forth. But it also points out what they don't want, including that they don't want him to attend an employment workshop or live in a group home, or have no choice in his schedule or be unhealthy, lonely or bored, etc. We have just reviewed several tools and there are many others out there that assist the support coordinator in getting to know the individual and determining what they want for their lives. When you're using the tools, it is important to remember that all of the tools are used as a starting point for conversations with the individual and their families, guardians, and providers. As you are getting to know the individual, asking other questions beyond what is on the tools will be helpful. Asking them things such as what their hopes and dreams are, if there is anywhere in the world that they would like to travel to, what their dream job is, what new things they would like to learn, or where do they go for fun, and things like that to really get to know the individual's wants and dreams. Some individuals do not communicate with words. It is important to remember that people communicate with actions too. Looking at an individual's patterns of behaviors can help the supporters understand the individual's personal preferences and priorities. Use observations in different settings to gather information about the individual's desires. People who are very familiar with the individual can be helpful to the support coordinator in describing what is important to the individual, but also helping the support coordinator understand how the individual communicates. All people communicate through behavior and expressions, so the support coordinator can ask questions about that to find out more about the individual. The person must be included in the process regardless of his or her ability to communicate. After the support coordinator has completed the PCPT and used any other information gathering tools to help them to get to know the individual, they can then work on developing person-centered outcomes. Here are some different areas of a person's life that are common categories that outcomes may fit into. These categories include valued social roles, employment, relationships, recreation, home life, health, and lifelong learning. When writing outcomes for an individual, there are some things to keep in mind. Outcomes should never include the service or service provider. For example, it should not be something like Johnny will attend a day hab program or Johnny will find a day hab program. Rather, it should be whatever he wants to do at the day program, why he wants to go there. If the individual has said they want to learn a specific skill, that can be an outcome. For example, like if they want to learn how to bake, that can be an outcome. Do not use the same outcome for every individual because then it would not be person-centered. Outcomes need to be agreed upon by all plan participants. It should be what the individual or guardian want as the outcome and something the provider feels they can help the individual achieve. It should not focus on the disability or readiness to achieve something. So we should not have an outcome saying, for instance, Johnny will have appropriate behaviors, as this relates to their disability. Rather, it should be focused on the individual's interests, hopes, and dreams. Do not use jargon, just use everyday language. The focus is really just to be specific to one area. So if the individual wants an outcome related to relationships, then don't combine that with, say, an employment outcome, such as Johnny will spend time with his friends and find a job working with animals. You would want to break that down into two different outcomes. Outcomes must include one focused on individual's employment goal. So during the time when you are gathering information and putting together the PCPT, you want to discuss employment, what field they might want to go into, if they have a work experience, and so on. This way you can develop an outcome for them that is related to employment. Lastly, outcomes are always to be respectful. Natural or generic outcomes should be created to capture all of the individual's hopes and dreams and reflect any ongoing services that are not funded through the DDD budget, such as PPP, DVRS, medical or partial day programs, and the like. For example, an individual is attending an adult medical day program that is not funded by DDD. The support coordinator would add that as a service under an outcome, select generic as the payment source, select day as the unit type, and then enter however many days the individual attends weekly for the average weekly units. The support coordinator should include the name and location of the program in the service description box. Now that we have talked about some of the do's and don'ts regarding outcomes, we will take a look at some examples of outcomes. This is an example of a possible outcome for Julie. From completing the PCPT and having other conversations, the support coordinator has discovered that one of Julie's long-term hopes and dreams is to live close to her mom in her own apartment with a cat. You can see that it is important to her to be around animals and feel loved. In the ISP, the support settings section, under Home, the support coordinator has added what Julie needs help with at home, so that when discussing how the outcome can be achieved, the team will know what supports would need to be in place, such as getting a shower chair, providing support in the shower and at meal times, etc. From there, the support coordinator may come up with outcomes such as Julie will participate and volunteer in other activities where she can learn to care for animals, or the second one listed here, which is very close to what is written in the hopes and dreams. Julie will live in her own apartment close to her mom with a cat. So sometimes you can literally take what is written as a hope or dream and list it as the outcome. Here is another example from looking at the important to you section of the PCPT. We see that Jessica wants to dress in a youthful style, wants to be able to have money to buy clothes, shoes, etc. We also see that she likes that she is stylish and youthful. In the support settings section of her ISP, it discusses what support she needs to have, such as budgeting and making choices in the clothing to wear based on weather, activities, etc. So they developed an outcome for her that she will have a job where she will make enough money to buy things she wants and needs. Our last example shows Trina's community integration section. Trina has experiences in going to restaurants, concerts, PetSmart, and going to an ice cream shop. She wants to get out more and likes to choose what to do. So the outcome that was developed is Trina will participate in community activities that match her interests and expose her to new opportunities. so that outcome matches what is written in her PCPT, as she wants to choose what to do and have new experiences in her community. The support settings section of her ISP talks about the supports that are needed to assist her with that outcome. As we have reviewed, one of the outcomes needs to be related to employment. There are 4 categories for the employment outcome: employed, unemployed with experience, unemployed without experience, or unemployed and not pursuing. So you can see a progression with these outcomes to help an individual to go from the unemployed, not pursuing category all the way to the employed category. First, the individual who is not pursuing employment will learn soft skills and identify areas of interest. Afterwards, they move to the unemployed, no experience or training category. So they are in the early stages of pursuing employment and would continue learning about what it means to work, explore career options, and be exposed to different careers, maybe have volunteer work, or prepare for job interviews. After the individual has gained some experience in volunteering or looking into different career options, they then would be in the unemployed with experience or training category and would start working on writing resumes, determining a career path, and applying for jobs. Then they hopefully would have a job offer and move to the employed category. At that time, the individual may want to just maintain their employment there if they are happy with their work situation. However, if the individual wants any changes to their work situation, such as having more or less hours or different hours, changes in salary or job responsibilities, or even if they want to change jobs altogether, then this would be reflected in the outcome. Now we will discuss the support coordinator's role and responsibilities around outcomes. The support coordinator should review the PCPT and previous outcomes prior to the individual's annual meeting to ensure that the outcomes will be person-centered. The support coordinator should discuss the services and progress towards outcomes with the individual or guardian and any issues or problems that have occurred so that they can work to address any ongoing issues. The support coordinator should discuss with individuals and guardians about their satisfaction level with their providers overall, but also specifically towards helping them to achieve their outcomes. The support coordinator should also discuss progress towards outcomes with providers and any concerns or barriers that may arise. The support coordinator will use the information they obtain through the ISP, PCPT, and other tools we have reviewed to identify needed services to assist the individual in achieving their outcomes. The support coordinator must communicate with providers about an individual's outcomes and discuss their provider's ability to assist the individual in progressing towards these outcomes. The service provider's responsibility is to collaborate with the individual to develop strategies to help the individual to reach the outcome related to the service they are providing. The service provider needs to be familiar with the individual's vision for their life, their outcomes, needs, and etc., and provide services and supports accordingly. The provider is responsible for ensuring that quality services are provided to the individual. An example of the provider's responsibility for, say, a DayHab program is that they participate in the development of outcomes with the team and then develop strategies to support that outcome. Strategies for an outcome are to be completed within 15 business days from when the individual started the service. The provider needs to document the strategies on the DayHab individualized goals log. The provider needs to revise strategies anytime there is a modification in the ISP that changes the service-specific outcome and upon the approval of each annual ISP. This is a tip sheet for providers about developing strategies. So you will see an example here of Janet's outcome, which is Janet will become a member of her local art center. The provider would want to list the strategies they will use in helping her to become a member there, such as role-playing with Janet. A strategy would not just be listing the service, such as Janet will receive community-based supports, but instead just listing out what things the supporter will do to assist Janet to become a member of the Art Center. In looking at the manual, you can see in the descriptions for each service listed which services can be used to assist individuals with different outcomes. The descriptions give a general idea of the connections between outcomes and services, but outcomes need to be individualized and person-centered as to what each individual wants to achieve. So looking at a few of these descriptions from the manual, you can see what areas each service is designed to assist with, such as assistive technology, which can help an individual who wants to increase, maintain, or improve their functional capabilities, or career planning would help an individual who has an outcome related to exploring careers or developing a path to employment. And then we can look at DayHab. DayHab would have an outcome related to what the individual expects to get out of participating in the DayHab program. This can include employment-related outcomes such as things that will potentially lead to an individual participating in the workforce, with strategies that involve building social skills, addressing personal grooming, increasing attention to tasks, and following directions. After the support coordinator has completed the PCPT, gathered information about the individual, created the ISP including the outcomes, and the provider has developed the strategies on how they will help the individual achieve the outcomes, then the support coordinator will monitor the progress being made towards the outcomes during the monthly monitoring. There is a section on the MMT document labeled Progress. It is a small box, but it is a very important part of our monitoring responsibilities. The support coordinator needs to ask service providers, individuals and guardians, etc., when completing the MMT about the progress being made towards outcomes and if there are any issues with making progress or modifications that need to be made to the plan. The support coordinator needs to find out what the individual's strategies are for outcomes and follow up on how they are doing with strategies to determine if they are making progress towards the outcomes. If they are not, maybe they need a new goal or different provider. The support coordinator should explore what is the obstacle to see if the plan needs to be changed or updated. The outcomes should show progression in what the person is achieving from year to year. This concludes the module on outcomes. The tools discussed in this module can be found at lifecoursetools.com. Further information about outcomes can be found in the CCP and supports manuals, the Best Practices Guide, and the guidebook put out by the Boggs Center titled Developing Effective Person-Centered Planning Tools and NJISPs.